The Crucible engraving tool is really quite simple. It's a pear-shaped cutter and a piece of aluminum handle that you can use handheld to make straight lines or inside of a pencil compass to make arcs. In this video, we're going to show you how to do the basic operations, how to do straight lines with a straight edge and the cutter by itself, and then how to put it into a compass and use it for arcs. After we learn those two basic steps, we'll learn two very basic spells that you can try out on your next piece of furniture. So I'd start with straight lines, and getting the tool set up is very simple. Once it's sharpened, you want to put it into the cutter, bottom it out, and tighten it up really tight. Good work here with the engraving cutter comes from everything being solid and nothing vibrating. I have here a practice board, and this is how I warm up every time I get ready to do an engraving on a piece of furniture, because you really have to kegel up to get the guts to start engraving on a finished piece of furniture. So this is a piece of basswood that I've spray painted red. The paint just helps me gauge how wide my line thicknesses are, how well I'm doing, and also I'm going to be engraving painted furniture, so I want to be able to see what the effect is going to look like. But this is just spray painted. The grain, by the way, you probably figured out, is running this way. And that's a key thing with straight lines. If you look at a lot of these straight lines that I've already scribed on here, they're diagonal to the grain. These tools cut better either across the grain or diagonal to the grain. When you go parallel with the grain, in line with the grain, that is when you might run into trouble and you'll get some tear out depending on how the grain is running through the board. So I try to plan out my cuts and my spells so that I'm predominantly cutting diagonal to or directly across the grain. To make straight lines, you need another tool in addition to the engraving cutter, and that is a wooden straight edge. It can be any length or width. This is about 2.5 inches wide, 1/4 inch thick, and it is planed straight and true on both long edges. And on the back side of it, we have some stair tread material. This is kind of a sandpaper grippy thing that you'll see people put on stair treads or on ladders. And you find it at any home center. And no, it doesn't hurt the painted surface. It just holds the straight edge so that it doesn't slide when you apply pressure against it. So let's make a cut. I'm going to make a cut sort of across the grain, diagonal to the grain. So with my offhand, I'm going to hold the wooden straight edge down, and then I'm going to hold the engraving cutter like a pencil, and I'm going to hold it fairly upright. And this is like how I'm warming up, as I'm trying to find where the cutter makes a nice, sweet line. And you can see I kind of, that's okay, but I kind of flubbed there a little bit. It's a little narrower there. That happens, and it's not the end of the world. But I'm going to start making practicing by making parallel lines and see if I can get the cutter consistently held firmly so that it doesn't shake or move, and the straight edge is being held straight and with firm pressure as well. And you'll find that after about 5 or 6 lines that it begins to get very easy to find that exact starting point for the cutter. And then it helps to go back across your work like this to get a feel for working across all the bumps. Keep your thing clear, because the ride gets a little rough when you start making these lines across other lines. Okay. So I'm pretty warmed up there with the straight line cutter, and so now I'm going to get to make some arcs. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the engraving cutter into a pencil compass. And what's important here is that these are, pretty much touching the wood at the same time without, you know, one of these being radically longer than the other. So that really helps you focus the cutting action in the right place. So look for a pencil compass. This is a Starrett, but there are lots of other ones that work well that can, you know, keeps the cutter and the point close in the same plane. The other thing you're going to want to do is when you set the compass is you want to lock it really hard, as tightly as you can. Anything that reduces vibration is going to be your friend. The other thing I'm going to do here is when I do arcs, I usually have the work clamped down because I don't have really a hand that is there to hold the board down. So clamps, or if it's a piece of furniture, it's not going to move. So when I make an arced cut, we'll start over here. I don't want to ruin that little spell. That one actually looks pretty good. Not that I can use it for anything. And what's important here is, you know, with a compass and a pencil, you just sit here and you spin it with a pencil. And that is not how this thing works at all. You need to support the cutter as much as you can. And so I get my hands down here by the cutter with a finger behind it. And then now I'm going to try to find that angle where it's cutting. There we go. And I'm going to jump out of the hole, because this is a video, and so I've got to screw up, but this is warm up. So it's okay to go through the line again to make it consistent. And then I'm going to try again. They said I'm good at this. I never said I was good at this. And then I can practice going the other way as well. And you need to practice going the other way because the cutters aren't always sharpened exactly identically, and they might have slightly different points at which they engage with the wood. There's a nice thick line. Now I'm starting to get a feel for it. It's been at least a month since I've done this. Now it looks like I've got a lot of Wi-Fi. So now that I'm warmed up, I'm going to flip this board over and we'll learn two of the most basic spells. Let's begin with a spell that I call Eternal Love, or Don't Forget You're Gonna Die. So it begins by making a rectangle, and this rectangle can be on a leg, which is very typical with these. And so to make the rough rectangle, we're going to start with, this is all straight lines, we're going to start across the grain. Come over here and make a second bounding line that's parallel to the first. Now we're going to make some diagonal lines. Okay, so that's the basic spell. We'll make some lines, bounding lines, top and bottom, even though this is risky. Maybe we'll have a good result, and maybe we won't. But I'll first by taking a light cut. All right, so we have this X, and this X represents a cross in many cultures, but we can then add some shading and it will change the symbolism of it. So we're going to make what I call, and other people call, Eternal Love. Don't leave home without it. And that involves filling in these parallel lines. And when you do this at first, you can lay these out in pencil. It'll make your life, your results a lot easier or a lot more predictable as you learn the tool. But eventually you're like, okay, this is just Eternal Love, and I know how to do Eternal Love. We all know Eternal Love. And you can just sort of dash it off like I'm doing here. But if this were a new spell, I would definitely draw it out. Okay, so when you look at the spell this way. This is what we call eternal love. This is the infinity symbol, and that is what creates that. If we turn it the other way, this is what we call don't forget you're going to die, which is, this is the hourglass and represents the amount of time you have on this earth. So one spell, two different meanings. Now let's get into making an arc spell. I need a drink.
Go.
Okay, now we're going to make a spell that involves arcs. We're going to make a thing that you can call, represents plowed fields. And you can say this is like, oh, a good harvest or just a good healthy farm. And so we put the tool into our compass, tighten everything up. And I'm going to start here firmly on near the edge, and okay, looks pretty good. So now I'm going to just adjust the cutter out a little bit and do it again. I actually don't think you want them evenly spaced. In fact, this one I will intentionally do a shorter radius. I think it looks better, except when you skip that little part. There we go. Okay, so you've made your fields. So now what we want to do is we're going to add what's called the fishing net spell. And that's a straight line spell. And it involves just taking your straight cutter and making a matrix of lines that look like a fishing net. And this net is what catches the evil, whether it's bugs or disease. And so this is where you got to get good at riding over your cuts before. I'm sure there are some Tron spells here that I don't know, but 1980s movie joke. Okay. Ta-da! And so now we have plowed fields and a fishing net. So those are two very basic spells that you can start to begin to decorate your furniture with and go a long way with just those two. And after we come back from a commercial break, we'll come back and we'll do some more spells in another video for you. Thanks for watching.